Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today's video is about time and how we spend it. And I tell you what, the older I get, the harder it is for me to go out of town for a weekend and stay on track with writing and video making, which is why I haven't made a video in a month rather than just missing 1 week like I had expected. But before we delve into the actual topic, let's do the writing update because I do want to stay on top of that. The last time I had posted a video, I had limped over 85,000 words, and that was by the end of March 9th. So in keeping with that method of accounting, here's the breakdown for the past few weeks. For the total span of March 10th through April 6th, I wrote 16,129 words. And so as of April 6th, the project total was sitting at 101,180 words. And so obviously there is room for some celebration there because I did cross the 100,000 word mark, which is halfway to the projected total of the book, even though I think it's going to exceed 200,000 words at this point, but it's still pretty exciting. Now, obviously, if you're doing the math, that is 4 weeks, and 4 weeks with 5,000 words per week should have gotten me 20,000 words, which means I did not stay on track with each of these weeks. And like I said, being away from home really does kind of tank my writing progress and then also my video making, since I typically do a good chunk of those activities on the weekends. And now further impeding my minimal weekday writing is the fact that I've just gotten back into powerlifting, so that's kind of a double-edged sword by itself. If you've ever been an athlete of any kind in any sport, you know that training for your sport of preference takes a lot more time than just going into the gym, lifting for a bit, and going home. There's nothing wrong with the latter, of course, and I encourage everyone to find some kind of physical exercise they enjoy. Regardless, most of my evenings after work are now stretched much more thinly because it takes a lot more time to go train for powerlifting specifically, which makes having the weekends to myself even more important. Now, I say all of this not just to throw myself a pity party, but also because I just think it's a good topic to discuss since it's been on my mind a lot lately. Obviously, I'm a big believer that consistency in whatever you're pursuing is a key element of success. Everyone's idea of success is different, of course, but I look at success in writing specifically as you completing the story you want to tell. The larger the story, then, the more time you're going to need, and therefore the harder it becomes to protect your time. Time is your most valuable resource. Time is the one thing none of us will ever get back, no matter how hard we try. Every moment of our lives, we are faced with choices on how we structure our time, and often we have to choose to do one thing out of several options. Hopefully, each of those options represents something positive for you, and you have to recognize that you can't do all of the positive things that you want to do. This is called opportunity cost, and people face this conundrum basically every day. The term is typically applied to economics as it represents the loss of potential gains from the alternatives from course of action that you've chosen. To use a really simple example, if you put $1,000 in a regular savings account, the opportunity cost is the higher interest rate you would yield in a different type of account. However, you can also flip the situation around. So if you have a CD, which stands for Certificate of Deposit, it's a good alternative to a traditional savings account because there's higher interest rate accrual and you're getting that money kind of on a compounded basis in the time length that you've chosen. But the trade-off is that the money is time locked, meaning that if you have a 3-month term on a CD, you can't access that money without accruing significant penalties if an emergency were to arise, which is where having money in a regular savings account could be beneficial because you have access to that money whenever you need it. As you can see, there are pros and cons to both sides of this very basic example. Opportunity cost is a real thing that can bog you down if you spend too much time belaboring your every decision, which couldn't be me. The aforementioned example is about money, but this can also be applied to virtually everything. Let's say you have 3 books you want to read. If you have plenty of time on your hands, you might be able to get through all 3 of them pretty quickly. But if you've got work, school, family, pets, etc. to deal with, you inevitably have to narrow down your choice to probably just 1 book to read. And if that book ends up being bad, you might feel not only let down, but also that you made a bad decision. And unfortunately, that's just the risk you take when you have to make a decision. On top of that, for better or worse, we live in a world full of constant distractions. I am by no means immune to this problem. I entertain myself with YouTube and Elden Ring more often than I should, although I haven't really been playing Elden Ring as much lately. Maybe that's why I've been so off feeling lately. Now, those things wouldn't necessarily be a problem if I weren't also a working adult and the sole provider in my house, because my cat is a lazy little butt and won't get a job to pay rent. So naturally, that means I have to chunk out time for the things I have to tackle, which narrows the amount of time I can then spend on the optional pieces of life, such as hobbies, friends, fitness, etc. Naturally, the question then arises of how do you choose what to prioritize? And there's not really a correct way to answer this, as it depends on your goals and what you're trying to get out of your life. However, for the purposes of this channel, I'm obviously going to say writing needs to be pretty dang high up on the list. If you're a writer and seeking to complete your stories, the act of sitting down and writing must be one of your top priorities. Next for me is fitness. I want to be stronger and stay relatively healthy, and physical activity is also good for your mental health and productivity. Much like telling a completed story, being strong and healthy requires that you stick to an established cadence, and if your goals go beyond general fitness, you naturally have to spend more time in the gym or on the practice field or whatever. And just these two aspects alone can often take up the entirety of my time after work on a given weekday. For me, then, the weekends become especially important for not only writing more, but also tackling the mundanities of life like cooking and cleaning. Compounding the issues of time, though, I've also found that as I age, I kind of just require more leisure time than I once did. So I have to bake in some time to just relax, as guilty as that often makes me feel. And then there's the problem of social obligations. Over the years, I have unfortunately had people give me guff over prioritizing writing and or lifting instead of going out to dinner or to a bar or what have you. Now, to be clear, even though the recent weekend out of town set back my writing process, I'm not throwing shade at my friends for that. I am an adult and I chose to spend the weekend away. To act otherwise would be disingenuous and indicative of a mindset incapable of admitting fault, and I don't like to be that type of person. However, this does speak to my broader point that sometimes you just have to tell people no. A really hard truth about writing and really any creative endeavor is that most people you meet, coworkers, friends, family, whomever, aren't going to respect your pursuits. I don't think this is intentionally malicious, at least for most people, but it's often difficult for others to recognize what they think of as a hobby is in fact the most important thing in your life. Frankly, there's only one real solution, and it's to tell people no. If you know that you need to write or go to the gym or what have you, say no to the coworkers demanding you go out for drinks, and don't let them shame you when they call you later on in the evening to tell you to come out because you don't have anything else going on. And yes, this has actually happened to me more than once, and it's incredibly annoying, but I told those people no, and they got over it. And if people do get upset by you establishing boundaries, that's on them. I certainly don't think you need to be a jerk about it, but standing up for yourself is critical to protecting your time. You have to be your own best advocate. Anyway, before I continue ranting forever about that, the point I'm getting at here is that there will never be enough time for you to do everything you want to do. The opportunity cost of staying home and writing may be that you miss out on a fun evening with friends. But you know what? That is okay. You might gain more by staying home and writing because you have gotten a great writing session done. You've gotten 2,000 words out of the evening. The book is cooking and you're moving along. That's all great stuff. You want that feeling. The same applies to going to the gym or anything else that you need to engage in that positively contributes to your life and maybe cuts into your social time or what have you, or your Netflix watching or video game playing. I understand people want leisure, but sometimes you have to balance the leisure with the things that you're trying to accomplish. So again, to protect your time, and this is a message not just for you, the audience, but also for me, Brandon, the video maker, you need to get accustomed to saying no to all the other distractions, whether that's people, social media, video games, or the slop we use to entertain ourselves to death. I'm not saying this is easy by any stretch, but I am saying it's essential for making progress in your goals, whatever those may be. But I think that's enough for today. I just kind of wanted to have a quick rant or ramble or diatribe, whatever you want to call this, about this topic of protecting your time and opportunity cost. So as always, thanks for stopping by. If you liked the video, please like the video and subscribe to the channel if you're not already. Leave a comment below on your thoughts on all of this. Do you struggle with making choices because of opportunity cost? If you don't, do you have any tips and tricks and advice for people who do? I'd especially love to know if you've dealt with people in your life who disregard your creative pursuits and how you navigate those kind of relationships. As always, I hope that you have a wonderful day, and I'll see you here in the next video.